I hate reinventing the wheel. Satoshi Nakamoto. Welcome to What is Your Bitcoin Story podcast, where we dive into the fascinating tales of individuals who have delved into the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I'm your host, Gigi, and today I'm excited to have A Stupid Moose, the CEO of CoinCards, joining us. He's a passionate advocate for Bitcoin, and in this episode, we will be exploring A Stupid Moose's personal Bitcoin journey down the orange rabbit hole. So sit back, relax, and let's get the show underway. Stupid Moose, welcome to the show.
How's it going? Welcome. Glad to be here.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. And as I told you when I just tuned in to the studio, very nice hat you're wearing there. I like that we're both representing BTC Pay Server. This is a non-paid sponsorship of BTC Pay, but I love what the guys are doing. And I believe you'll share about your story, but you've been an early user of BTC Pay Server, is what I heard at BTC Prague. So I was like, oof, we definitely need to get A Stupid Moose on the show. So I guess I'll pass it on to you, Stupid Moose. Where does your Bitcoin journey begin?
So my Bitcoin journey begins probably around 2012. So quite a while ago. Like everybody, I heard about Bitcoin and I was like, what is this? This magic internet money? Okay, yeah, that's not for me, right? Like I was young and naive, and I was like, I want Canadian dollars because I'm from Canada. So I was like, okay. So I ran a service back in 2011, 2012, and it was kind of like a website hosting service in Canada. And basically my customers were coming to me and saying, I want you to take Bitcoin. And I was like, okay, what is Bitcoin? This is like before I had ever heard about it. And so I kind of looked into it a little bit, found BitPay at the time. And I was like, okay, these guys can pay with their Bitcoins, their magic internet money, and I can get my Canadian dollars. Win-win. Like, at the end of the day, all I cared about was getting fiat. So I did that for a while. I was just cashing out through BitPay back in the day when they were first around. Fast forward to about 2013, probably about November, no, maybe a little earlier. There was a local college who was doing a lunch and learn. And so they were going to have a Bitcoin speaker as a guest. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to go check out what this Bitcoin thing is about and learn a little bit about why these people are using it to pay for my services. So I head down to the lunch. Yeah. And I listened to this guy speak, and it was like a college full of coders. So you're thinking looking back, I'm thinking these guys should have all been like, okay, this is awesome. But of course I'm the only one in the room who I'm like, this is sweet. Like, what is this? Well, everybody's bored out of their minds, but I'm the only one that's just like, yes, I want to know more. Tell me more. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where it clicked for me. And, the guy he was talking was like, even if you just buy one Bitcoin and kind of play around with it, at the time, one Bitcoin was like $200 or something like that. Right? It was like, it wasn't ridiculous to think that you just go and buy one Bitcoin. So I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And I was thinking to myself, you know what? I'm going to stop using this BitPay, and I'm just going to start accumulating some Bitcoin so I can play with it. Yeah, and then so I went up to after the lunch and learn, I went up to him and I was like, hey, I want to know more. And I was the only person that approached him. And he's like, yeah, that's totally cool. He's like, we actually have a hackerspace in Vancouver called Decentral Vancouver. And he's like, come down, we do things every Thursday night. We do like a talk. So that's kind of where I got my start. I started hanging out at this Decentral Vancouver spot, which is still there to this day.
Oh, wow. Over a decade. So still going hard every Thursday.
I don't know if they do every Thursday. It's kind of pivoted. They have like Solana and Ethereum meetups and stuff out of there now, but still
they've been influenced.
Yeah. So I mean, it's always kind of kept that decentralized mindset, but definitely has pivoted in different directions, even though there are a lot of Bitcoin influences in that space still.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, we would go down every Thursday. We'd have people who are working on crazy projects at the time. Like you'd have like Vitalik before Ethereum was down there.
Wow.
Roger Ver talked to us before he split off and did his antics.
When he was still Bitcoin
No.
Jesus.
Yeah, when he was still just Bitcoin Jesus, not Bitcoin Judas, right? So I mean, it was a cool space. And we just kind of hung out on the couch and we video called people every week, and just kind of, being around a lot. Back in that day, you were around a lot of people who didn't give a shit about the money aspect of it, or like what the price was, right? Nobody really cared about price. Everybody just wanted to build cool stuff.
What can we build more than what can we
Yeah,
buy? Which
yeah,
is a better
exactly.
mindset.
Yeah, what can we build? What can we do? Like, how can we enrich humanity, kind of thing.
Nice.
In it for the technology.
Yeah, as it should be, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of where I got my start in Bitcoin. I was there, I'd be there every Thursday, listening to people talk about their projects, trying to absorb as much as we could. There was a group in Vancouver that was really about merchant adoption, even back in 2013. And so I kind of got hooked into those guys a bit, and we were trying to push a lot of merchant adoption, try and get Bitcoin accepted at places. I think there was probably a good 10 to 15 places at the time that I was actually taking Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
But I was like, I need more. I need to actually, I want to try and live on this, which I couldn't do. So basically, I was like, okay, what if I become the middleman and let people go through me, and I'll enable people to live on Bitcoin? And so I sat down one weekend and I created the first version of CoinCards. Launched it and just started spamming Reddit, and that's kind of where we got our start.
That was pre Bitcoin Twitter, right? Everybody was sitting on Reddit and Bitcoin Talk
Reddit
forums.
Yeah, I think at the time I still didn't really understand Twitter or what was going on with it, so I was just like, Bitcoin Talk and Bitcoin Twitter, or Bitcoin Reddit, sorry.
Amazing. So I guess I would love to go back in the day, go a decade back. And as you said, Steuben was kind of the whole sentiment and the whole community. It was a much more, if I can say, healthier. There wasn't this envy on, how do I get, my product better than the other one. It was very collaborative, and it was all pre these big chaos, pre block wars, pre a lot of things that kind of hard forked, not just the code, but the community and the following base. And generally kind of what are some kind of takeaways from how Bitcoin community was quote unquote better back then than it is today, since you've kind of lived through it? Or kind of what would you like to see more of in today's Bitcoin community based on kind of the history and what it was like in the early days?
Yeah, I think, collaboration was huge. Being able to go and just talk to people, for me anyways, was a huge thing. Just being able to talk to people who had totally different ideas and kind of, absorb that and kind of make your own judgments based on that. I think Bitcoin kind of changed around the time of the fork and around the time of the first big pump, when we went up to, I think it was $20,000 US or something. And that's when you were getting the finance bros coming in.
Yeah.
And those are the guys that literally will just be like, hi, my name's Bill. How much Bitcoin do you have? And you're like, well, that's none of your business, man. How much do you have in the bank account?
kind of questions that.
Yeah, so that's kind of a shift or a point in history where I think it shifted. I would say that's 2017, 2018. Maybe not shifted, but just kind of had more of the traditional finance influence come in. Whereas before that, I think we were just all, cyberpunks sitting around in a dirty basement, talking about how we can change the world.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and even after the 17 entry of the finance boys, especially this year as well, we even have the higher end finance boys with the ETFs coming in right now and the BlackRocks of the world. Like it's like, could you imagine that a decade ago that like BlackRock and all these guys would be launching all these ETFs and it would be so like financialized, if I could use that word, or did you think it's always going to be kind of this underground cypherpunk movement where kind of it's going to take a long time for adoption to spread and
Yeah,
influence?
I mean, we kind of just thought it was going to be like a competitor to banks
Mm.
back in that day, and we wanted to replace the banking system as
As we still do.
foolhardy as that. Yeah, I mean, but that's going to take another 50 years or something at least. Like it's going to take a while.
Mm.
But yeah, 10 years ago, I never would have thought that there would be all these ETFs and there's banks that are getting involved in them. But at the same time, those banks are still blocking your bank accounts for having cryptocurrency trading. So it's 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 a
Hypocritical.
weird it's a weird time right now, where you get institutional money who wants to play with Bitcoin, but then you get them. They're almost doing the whole like you need to be an accredited investor to play with us, even in your own realm of Bitcoin. Whereas we're just like, no, we're going to self custody your Bitcoin. Fuck off. We don't need you.
So I guess you're not liking the route that as of the last 24 hours, since it's all over the place with Michael Saylor kind of talking about the paranoid crypto cypherpunks. It's all about custodying your Bitcoin and and a third party and abiding by the rules of the law. What's your take
Yeah,
on that?
I've never trusted that guy.
Okay,
Anybody who knows me knows that I have always
nice.
said that I don't think that guy's going to be good for Bitcoin. I mean, he's done a lot for a lot of people, I guess, out there. But one of the first things I remember him saying when he started getting into Bitcoin is that he didn't want Bitcoin to replace the US dollar. He thought that the US dollar should be the US dollar,
Mm,
and that governments should have complete control over currency. And so when he said that, when it was like, this was a
red
few years ago
flag.
when he started, yeah, it was just a red flag. It was like, this guy doesn't get it, and anybody who has that much Bitcoin, what happens if he ever decides to dump it?
True.
Um,
True.
you know,
Well, let's see. And most people don't know the history of Michael. That during the dot-com boom, like MicroStrategy went into the stratosphere, way above like the growth that we see today with the Bitcoin adoption on their balance sheet, and then had like basically it crashed. It went down by like 99.5%. Like he didn't write
hmm.
it. So there's been some bad history, some tricky stuff. So who knows? My personal take on Sailor has been, when I started this pod, I tweeted this. I don't think I tweeted it. I Noster noted this
Hmm.
last night, where I was saying, I wouldn't call it a big fan, but like I looked up to Michael, and when I started this pod 15 months ago, like he was one of my like big AAA guest stars to come on the show. And now with everything that's been happening, uh, to be honest, I don't really want Michael on the show. Like I'd much rather have paranoid crypto cypherpunks on the show. And yeah, it's interesting how tides are changing. Uh, and to be honest, I was never like personally, I was never a fan of these ETFs, even though they kind of legitimized Bitcoin to a certain extent. But prior to my Bitcoin kind of journey, which started in mid 2017, I worked in the forex brokerage industry as a financial analyst. And I never loved the industry where they were selling essentially CFDs, these contracts for difference, which is no different to CFDs, which is essentially paper Bitcoin. It's basically you're paying, you're wiring money to an institution where you, so to say, have some Bitcoin or stock or currencies, whatever it is, under your name, but you can never actually, physically hold it. And the whole point of Bitcoin is that you actually own it and hold it in self custody, that you actually own the underlying asset, that you don't have to trust no company, no partner, nobody. So, it's kind of a double edged sword where these ETFs are, growing Bitcoin. To a certain extent, I don't really like it, and I've spoken on many different episodes. It's very strange that BlackRock, and I think apart from one or two, like a handful of ETF providers, they don't disclose their public addresses, which is insane. Like they're selling this asset class, which is an open ledger that everybody can verify, and everybody's so happy about it. But then these guys are like clocking in and recording these millions of dollars of inflow into their ETF, but no address is disclosed. And it's just very strange. And I was saying from the beginning of the year that like sooner or later, like the shit's gonna come afloat. Like a lot of these ETF guys are just gonna be selling paper Bitcoin. They won't have any Bitcoin under the belt. And it's just a matter of time on when that's gonna happen. And just of recent, just last month, BlackRock had this whole dispute with Coinbase where they need to initiate, they changed their contract terms, and they initiated that they need to do a 12-hour withdrawal period, and like all this dodgy stuff is happening, but still no public address. What's your take on that, Stupid Moose? Do you think there's some fishy paper Bitcoin being sold on the market?
Yeah, I definitely I think so. I mean, the easiest way to dispel that, like you said, is to post a public address, post your funds. But I think the market that they're going after is probably typically not Bitcoiners,
Mm.
and they're probably going after the people who don't understand Bitcoin. And so they, there's just been that trust for 100+ years of this company's going to take care of me. But Bitcoiners don't trust anybody. um,
That's the
so
difference.
I mean, Bitcoiners, yeah, we're like, where's the funds? Where's the address? Show me the proof. This is a public ledger. Why aren't you using the key feature of that public ledger to show me that you have those funds? So when they won't do that, then I don't think they have those funds.
Mm.
Um, I think it's that simple. I mean, like, there's been so much financial bullshit over the last, God, like, since I've been alive. Like,
For the past 100 years, pre a Stupid Moose.
yeah. Um, so I mean, I don't trust anybody. And if you can't show where the funds are, I don't think you have those funds, or you're lending those funds out to other things. Maybe they're playing like a dumb game of trying to get yield from shit coins. Who knows, right?
Who knows? Well, there was another guy. I can't really put a name to him that was talking about Bitcoin yield, but never mind. We'll leave that for another time. But yeah, I wanted to bring up also another factor, since we kind of debunking this ETFs, is also the transactions on chain for the last like 6 to 8 months, since like all these like Bitcoin ETFs, like all these hundreds of millions of dollars of purchasing, have been going inflow into Bitcoin. On-chain data doesn't really show anything, and then more the price has been, Bitcoin's been pretty much a stable coin between the 70 and 58 gang range. Like it's just been up down, like a pulse. Like, so I don't know where they're getting all this, Bitcoin from. I doubt it's all OTC big whales that we're holding for a decade now. Suddenly they want to be selling their altcoins to these ETF players. So let's see. I don't know. This is all speculation. I'm not saying they don't have it, but I just personally think there's some fishy stuff going on, because, as you said, I totally agree with you, Stupid Moves. There's been so much fishy stuff going on in finance for centuries, that now with Bitcoin, they're just like, oh, there's a new asset class that we can play around. But
Exactly.
as we say, play around and find out. Like Bitcoin's a little bit different. You can't really, there's only so long you can be hiding something until the evidence is not there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you want to get exposure into Bitcoin, the best way, as we all know, is just to buy some Bitcoin and hold it
Correct.
yourself.
Correct. So I want to go back now to your story. So with CoinCards, so you said, so this was about mid 2014, right? That you launched CoinCards to kind of act as this middleman between merchants and consumers. So how did that go? Like, where does the story continue from there?
Yeah, so I mean, we launched in July 2014.
Oh, well, it
And
was
we
a
kind of
decade
just did
ago
it
now, exact like a few months ago. Congrats on
a few
10
months
years
ago.
in business.
Yeah, a few months ago was our 10th anniversary. Um, yeah, so I mean, when we launched, we did it very like I built a website on I think it was like OpenCart or something, like over a weekend. And basically, I was taking orders, and then I would fulfill those orders using a credit card, um, and then I would charge a small fee. Um, then we started kind of gaining some traction with that, Started working with some ATM providers. So we were actually selling Bitcoin back to some of the ATM providers. We were getting cash from those ATM providers. And then we were doing this whole we'd spend the morning basically running from store to store, buying gift cards with cash, taking them back home, selling them to people, getting Bitcoin, selling the Bitcoin to ATM providers. Is it because the exchanges didn't really exist at this point?
I was gonna
Like
say,
all they,
what was the exchange options? There wasn't much, right?
yeah, I mean, we had one called CA Vertex, I think, at the time,
Okay.
and the guy who founded that was like known to be a scammer, so I didn't really want to touch them. I think Quadriga had just launched. Um,
That's when the CEO was
we
still
did,
alive.
yeah. So I mean, we did have a Quadriga account at the time, so we were using that a bit too. Yeah. So I mean, it was just basically like
What about local Bitcoins? Was that not like very active in Canada back in the day?
that wasn't really very active in Canada. Back then, I think I was using Craigslist sometimes to throw ads on there.
Wow.
So I would sell Bitcoin. Yeah, it was a weird time.
Gen Zs are
But I
probably
mean,
thinking, "What's Craigslist?"
yeah. um, so it was a weird time. But like I wanted to build this business. I wanted Bitcoin to succeed. So I hustled my ass off and kind of made it work however we could. Did that probably for a couple of years. And then we ended up getting approached by some gift card companies who were basically like, there was actually two ways of gift card companies looking at us. There was one gift card company who was like, "You're banned. Don't ever buy our stuff again." And then there was another company that was like, "Hey, you're doing something really cool. We want to hook you into official channels and start like working with you."
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so I mean that's probably where we kind of started to evolve into like what we call CoinCards 2.0. We started to get some discounts from some of the providers, and we started to pass those discounts on to the customers. And
How
yeah,
long did it take to get to that stage of like 2.0? Was that like a few months span or like a year over a year? What was
I
like the
I'd say
longevity?
that was probably about two to 3 years
Oh wow.
of just really hustling like that before we got into that. Um, yeah, so it took quite a while, and like I said, there was people who were just like other provider like gift card providers who were like, absolutely not, we won't work with you because you're Bitcoin.
Hmm.
But there was some who were like, yeah, we will work with you. And
Crazy.
I mean, that's still to this day, we still get certain brands who are like, no, we don't want anything to do with Bitcoin. It's fewer than it was like obviously in 2018.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's and the whole purpose for me, kind of to build this company, was to basically say this is the volume of people who want to spend Bitcoin at your stores. So it was kind of like we wanted to gather stats that we could be like, hey, Walmart, there's millions and millions of dollars pumping through us that you could just be taking.
Hmm.
Um, in the end, I don't want to exist because I just want those merchants to take Bitcoin directly.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
that's kind of always been our ethos, is like make ourselves obsolete.
nice, make yourselves obsolete. I like it. I like it. So I guess also, as I mentioned in the beginning, you also have a long history with BTC Pay Server. How did that come to fruition? How did you guys connect?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that was 2017 now. So we were running our business. We were using a product called Mycelium Gear. I don't know if you remember the Mycelium wallet.
It rings a bell, Mycelium wallet, but I personally I never used it, but I remember. I
Okay.
remember from back in the day.
Um, yeah, so they had a payment product called Mycelium Gear,
Mm.
and it basically was a way to create unique addresses and have payments go to these unique addresses. But it was plagued with address reuse,
Oh
and
wow.
it got to a point where we were just like, I had to hire somebody to work 8 hours a day to reconcile payments,
Oh wow.
just because the system was so bad. And then I saw Nicholas's famous tweet, this is lies. We were very involved in the the fight to keep Bitcoin the way it was.
Mm.
And, there was a couple companies in Canada who signed this letter basically saying like, we're not going to split off. We don't care what you want to do with block size. We're not going to touch it. And I think that was like CoinKite was part of it. Bills, who is now Bull Bitcoin, was part of it. He signed it. A few other people, Quadriga, I think, and yeah. So we were basically like, we're not forking. We believe in Bitcoin the way it is. Thought was going with that. Oh yeah. So then Nicholas, at the same time, was basically like, his tweet was like, this is lies. I'll make you obsolete.
Yeah.
So he had said, anybody who wants to join me in trying to make this, let me know. So I reached out to him and I said, look, I'm a merchant. I'm not happy with what I'm using right now. I think that this system would be really cool. I'd like to chat with you about it. So he made a Slack channel at the time, and we kind of chatted, and I was like, okay, I'm in the process of moving my website over to a different thing. I wanted to move to WooCommerce and WordPress, and I had said to him like, we need to fork off the BitPay WooCommerce plugin and make it work. So he's like, yeah, I get that. Let's do that. So he did that within like a couple days, got up the beta testing for it. And so we started using it. We're like, okay, yeah, this is cool. This works. And I think this is before he even really announced that he had it up and running. So we launched with it in December 2017. So we were the first merchant to actually start using BTC Pay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it worked flawlessly. And it was funny because he had
You
basically
had to fire
reached
that
out.
guy, right? That was doing the 8-hour shifts, reconciling all the addresses.
No, just got to move them on to something else.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so that was good. Yeah, we saved so much time just by switching to BTC Pay, and it was working flawlessly. And we were getting this was also at like the height of like the pump, and like everybody was spending like crazy because they thought Bitcoin was never going to go past 20,000. So I mean, we were scrambling. We were having a hard time keeping up. And Nicholas reached out like a month or like a couple weeks. Like we've been chatting throughout this, and he was like, "Yeah, so like, how's this system holding up?" And I was like, "Yeah, like last couple weeks, we processed over $1 million worth of transactions." And he was just like, "What?" Like he didn't believe that
I thought it was going to be like a few
this little
thousand,
system.
10,000.
Yeah, yeah. So he was like, and it handled it. I'm like, yeah, it's working super well, and like this is an awesome system. So that's when
Amazing.
I think around the time they launched it publicly, and people started jumping on, and Pavel Next was there, Rockstar was there. Yeah, it was just Tux, I think, came a little bit later, but it was basically like just a few people building it, and I kind of kept putting input in, like, okay, like as a merchant, I need this, and I need this, and I need this, and he was super good. Him and Rockstar were just like pumping away like crazy, and
yeah, Rockstar definitely has a fitting name for his creativity.
yeah.
No, and it's crazy.
Yeah, so that's where we got started with BTC Pay. We've been
Wow.
using them ever since. We're a foundation member, so we make money from them, so we don't mind sponsoring
Giving back.
their foundation so that developers get paid. Yeah,
Of
because we
course.
wouldn't be where we're at without them.
No, for sure. And it's, like I realized you had a close connection, even at the BDC Prague, like your booths were next to each other, and you said, we go way back, but I had no idea that you were actually like so intertwined and being like the first merchant to actually have it before BTC Pay was even announced. Yeah, amazing. And I mean, what the guys are doing, I'm definitely waiting somewhere down the line. I'll definitely have Nicholas on the show, and Rockstar and Pavlinex all individually, because I want to hear their individual story, how it came along. But
Yeah.
It's just so inspiring to show, like, if you put yourself to something, how you can create it, and how Bitcoin really gives you, it's like a blank sheet to really go as far as you want to go. And the documentary that came out just a couple of months ago was like, it gave me goosebumps, like watching it. Like I knew some stuff about BTC Pay, but like I never realized like how deep it goes, and like how many people have been affected by it. And I think still to them it's like they're only getting started. There's so much like adoption and widespread to go ahead. That's why, hence, I rock this hat on every episode, because I want to do my little deed of spreading the word about BTC Pay Server. And whenever I get asked, for merchants, how do I accept Bitcoin? That's the first service I refer them to. Just spin up a node and get BTC Pay Server set up, which today is super easy. Like, you can just get a Start9 node. You can even do a plug and play if you don't want to do your own build, and just download the application, set it up in one afternoon, and there you go, like connected to your website, and you can suddenly be accepting Bitcoin, which is a much faster turnaround than getting a bank account and getting your PayPal account and getting Stripe and like all these different things, which absolutely take so much time. They KYC you down to your underwear, and they take a cut of every transaction, which is like, why would you want to do that? So, but yeah, I mean, now fast forward into 2024, Stupid Moose, how's like the Bitcoin merchant adoption in Canada today? Like, has it gone as good as you thought, or it's still slacking, or it's slowly picking up? Where does it stand
So
today?
I'm particularly like lucky because I live in Vancouver,
Okay.
and we have a huge group of people who are pushing merchant adoption in Vancouver.
Oh, nice.
There's a wallet that's actually based out of Vancouver called Coinos, and they
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of merchant adoption in the city. Like, they do it worldwide, but they do a real big push in Vancouver City. So we've actually got about 100 brick and mortar stores in Vancouver that take Bitcoin,
Oh, wow.
and they'll take it directly.
Amazing.
So I mean, my barber takes it. A couple restaurants near me take it. I can go and buy chicken and eggs and beef with Bitcoin. You can go downtown Vancouver and you can go to pretty much any kind of restaurant. Mexican, Latin, steak houses. There's just anything you can do
Bitcoiners like
for
steak.
Bitcoin. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, Vancouver is huge. I will say the rest of Canada, they're trying, but they're not quite there yet.
Okay.
So I traveled to Montreal recently and couldn't find anywhere that took Bitcoin. I went to Toronto as well, same thing. You're talking to like bartenders sometimes at the bar, and you can convince them to take a tip in Bitcoin. Did
But
that
you
a
can't
few
pay the bill.
times, but you can't pay the bill. No.
Oh,
So we're not there yet. And it's kind of disheartening because it's like we're getting so used to it in Vancouver
yeah, yeah.
that, I know that me and like a bunch of other people that I know, when we go other places, we're like, hey, where do we pay Bitcoin? What do you mean you don't have anywhere? Like,
Feels like you've gone back in
yeah,
time, back to the
yeah,
future.
yeah. So I mean, there's some initiatives out there. Like there's BTC Pay, or sorry, not BTC Pay. BTC Sessions is doing like a
Mm.
Sats market every couple months where they bring together like a bunch of vendors who are taking Bitcoin,
Is that in
and they do like
Vancouver?
a free market. No, that's in Calgary.
In Calgary?
Um, yeah, so I'm just saying, like, there's other initiatives that are kind of happening
Oh, okay,
across the
got you across the
country,
country. Yeah, 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 yeah.
to to try and like booster up some adoption. Um, I know
Have you gone to the
Niagara
Sets market,
Falls.
by the way? Or you haven't
Yeah, I've
been
gone
yet?
to two. I've gone to two of them. I think he's had three, and there's a fourth one coming up.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Niagara Falls has like a few different places that they're starting to get through their Bitcoin meetup, and yeah, so there's things that are happening. But yeah, I mean, traveling, you're always kind of disappointed when you see the map and like you look on BTC map and there's like nobody there, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Like, I think like Dallas. I was in Dallas and I was disappointed because I was like, isn't Dallas like a big Bitcoiner hub? Like,
Who would
yeah.
have thought,
So I
eh?
mean,
We're still
we're
so
getting there,
early.
but it's slow. Yeah, we're still so early.
So my question, would you be able to live on a Bitcoin standard if you lived just in Vancouver?
Yeah,
Apart, of
definitely.
course,
I
from
think so.
paying your like electricity bill. You can't pay your electricity bill in Bitcoin, right? Or there is some like gateway to pay even your bills in
Uh,
Bitcoin.
there are some gateways for bills.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I
So
mean,
you
you
could
can
live fully
probably
on
get.
Bitcoin if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, even through CoinCards, like we help with groceries, gas, all the weird
Mm.
things that um, you can't buy through just peer-to-peer transactions. But
Yeah, yeah.
that's kind of still why we exist. But yeah, I think it's like I pretty much live on a Bitcoin standard. I know a bunch of other people who are mostly on a Bitcoin standard. Um, yeah, so
One
it's
here,
definitely
one
doable.
here.
Yeah, awesome.
I can't pay for everything in Bitcoin, but like, like mostly like all my salary, everything, goes into Bitcoin. Just everything's like, I denominate everything in sats. Like whenever the wife wants to get something or like we're looking to get something for the house, I'm calculating in sats and I'm like, like, is this thing really worth like 100,000 sats? I don't know. Like, maybe we'll see,
Okay.
because the normal fiat prices is just, it's so easy. They're just going up. So you lose track of them. But in sats, it's a different mindset.
Yeah, I think it's totally a different mindset. I think Bitcoiners are like, once you've been in Bitcoin long enough, you just like everything becomes a, do I really need that or do I
Yeah.
want that? And would I rather have more Bitcoin?
Well, I think that's the solution. Specifically talking about the EU, about this whole fight on greenhouse gases, and how, I don't know how it is in Canada, but in Europe there was no more plastic straws. How everybody's drinking through paper straws, to save the planet. I think if they would have adopted a Bitcoin mindset, then the consumerism would take a shift. Maybe not for the best, but people would be considering: do I really need that? 100-second pair of jeans? Do I need those sneakers? And I have a closet full of them. But yeah, I guess consumerism needs to play its own role. But on the topic of Europe, I wanted to bring up another latest thing that's happening in the news with this whole essentially fight against Bitcoin, which I'm sure you've been following yourself on X and on other social platforms. Starting off with Italy declaring that they're going to be increasing the capital gain tax on Bitcoin from 23 or 27% to 42, which is crazy. And then this whole Bitcoin paper that came from the EU Parliament about basically saying that people will lose control of it and it's going to basically destabilize society, which is primarily what they've been doing for the last few decades. And then finally, also, there's been a Fed bank, I think it's Minneapolis or I don't know, one of the states. They also came out and there was a whole big, Bitcoin bashing paper. Like there's so many things in the last week that have been coming out fighting against Bitcoin. What's your take on it, Stupid Moose? Do you think they're starting to realize that, holy shit, like if we don't take this serious fight against the Bitcoin adoption, then we're definitely going to lose this out? Or you think there's something else that's a hidden agenda behind all these things suddenly coming out to light?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I always say that I think that government action against Bitcoin is actually good for Bitcoin
Good
because it
marketing.
pushes us. Yeah, and it pushes us, good marketing because it's like, if I can't have something, well, maybe I want that. Like,
Mm,
I'll take an example. Like, do you know what a flipper zero is?
no.
Okay, so it's a little like hacking device.
Okay.
But apparently it's been banned in Canada. And when I found out it was banned in Canada, like I knew what this thing was, but when I found out it was banned in Canada, I
You
was
wanted
like,
it.
how do I get one? Right? Like, so I mean, governments trying to attack Bitcoin, I think it attracts a lot of people who have the mindset of, you know, questioning what governments are doing to look at things and be like, okay, I can't buy Bitcoin. Maybe I should get some because maybe they don't like it for a reason.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I always kind of think that that's good for Bitcoin. I know traditional people will be like, no, that's bad. Like, I have to pay my capital gains from 23 to 46%. Well, you know,
You can always
uh,
move.
you can always move. You can go to a different jurisdiction. Um, yeah, go somewhere where it's taxes are more favorable for Bitcoin.
True.
Maybe don't spend your Bitcoin for a couple of days, or like try and figure out what the laws are to get around that exemption. Um,
There's always a way.
there's always a way, and the rich do it. Like the rich have exemptions all over the place. So I mean,
True.
it's like they're trying to penalize the Bitcoiners now because the Bitcoiners, through their belief in this, are starting to become
Hmm.
wealthy. So they want to, you know, in my mind, traditionally, you look at most Bitcoiners, we were never wealthy growing up. So we're looking at things that are making us wealthy, whether we care about that or not. But they're putting in these systems in place to push us down to try and get us back to those levels of not being one of them because they don't want that association. I guess so we're not good enough for them.
They don't want those paranoid crypto anarchists. Like, leave them away.
Yeah, yeah. The people who question whatever they're doing, right?
True. That's a very interesting analogy you brought up. A stupid moose. The kind of factor when you're not allowed to do something, you want to do it so much more. I can I can relate it also to kids and their parents, right? When your parents tell you, "Oh, you're not allowed to drink alcohol," like the only thing you want to do is go and drink alcohol, right? Because you're like, why are they telling me not to do it? So you always rebel
Yeah,
against whatever the authority is, your parent, your government, your boss, whatever it is. So actually, yeah, I think that's a good thing. So if any governments are listening to the show, keep on bashing Bitcoin because we'll get more people to try it out and see what this is all about.
yeah, definitely.
So going back now, once again, I diverted of CoinCards. So what's the plans now? So you've had your 10-year anniversary. There's been a lot of, would you say even competitors? Like, is Bitrefill your competitor, or their business model slightly different to what you guys do since you
No, I'd say
launched?
they're probably our main competitor. Yeah, I mean
But they're EU
they are what
based,
they
right,
are.
or US based? They're not Canadian.
They're EU based, I believe.
Okay.
And then they expanded into the US probably, I think, just before we did.
Okay.
So we were Canadian based until 2019, and then we moved into the US as well, expanded there, and then now we're in Europe, Australia, UK.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, a couple differences I think between them is that they're heavily funded
Hmm.
through all these seed funding and investors. We're just a couple of cyberpunks that are bootstrapped, and we're going to stay that way because we don't want anybody
Yeah.
telling us what to do. Um, we're going to keep up with no KYC as long as we can. If we ever are required by law to do KYC, we'll probably just be like, no, close down shop. Whereas like somebody who's heavily backed by investors, they're going to be told, no, you're going to start implementing KYC. I don't care, right?
True. Does Bitrefill
Um,
require KYC, by the way? I've never used Bitrefill, so I'm
uh,
not familiar.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not 100% familiar with them because I don't use them as myself. I know that they
Yeah.
have a product that is like a credit card, and I think that requires KYC. And they might have had like a bill payment system at some point that requires KYC.
Mm.
But I mean, we built our own services to like exclusively not use KYC. We get requests all the time for things like reloadable credit cards, and we're like, well, we don't want to do that because then we have to KYC you, and we don't want to hold that information. I don't believe in
True.
it, right?
And it's against your ethos.
Um,
Like it doesn't matter. Like it's none
yeah,
of our business knowing your personal information.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's certain things we just won't do, no matter how much people request it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's just because that's what I believe.
No, I love it. Like if there'd be more companies like yours where, the founders and the teams really, strive and respect their morals and what they believe in instead of cashing the quick seed round funding, or we're going to get X amount of million dollars, pounds, whatever it is, and, grow this thing into a massive thing. But then you're always answering to someone. And when you get this peer
Exactly.
pressure, you can't just say, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, it's going to be a
Yeah.
little bit of a fight. So I really respect that. I respect that, stupid
Yeah,
moose.
especially when they're investors. I mean, I don't think you have a choice. You get told
No,
what to do, and
because your main goal
some
is to just grow the numbers to give them more back money, which is not the whole point of business. Whole point of business is customer support and customer experience instead of what it is today, which is shareholder rewards and what are they called? Not derivatives. What are they called? Dividend payments. For all the
yeah,
shareholder, which is not,
yeah.
which kills the whole purpose of the business. But yeah, we'll see what happens of it. So
And it even goes against the Bitcoin ethos in a way. Like,
true.
yeah,
Very much so. Very much so. So I guess we've bashed a couple of stuff that's happening in Bitcoin. Now, on the brighter side, where the grass is always greener, what are you most excited about, Stupid Moose? What's happening in the space today?
I think merchant adoption. I mean, like I had said before, Vancouver's a hot spot. I mean, I bought a couple $100 worth of chicken a couple weeks ago from a farmer that took Bitcoin,
Nice.
and like that's super cool to me. Like that's what I want to see. Like I want to I want to go peer to peer with everything, and I want to support local. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to ever have to go to a grocery store if I don't have to, right?
Mm.
Or if I do have to go to a grocery store, maybe I can go to a local market, a family run business as opposed to a mega corporation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think, I think that's what I'm excited about right now, and that's happening in Vancouver. And it's kind of like what we're all a buzz about right now is just, getting more and more peer to peer local family run businesses
Mm.
accepting Bitcoin so that we can all enjoy the circular economy.
No, I love it, and it feels so much better supporting family-owned businesses, businesses that are really putting in their heart, soul, and everything, the hard work into it instead of going to your big department store and even if they accept Bitcoin, which probably they won't even be holding the Bitcoin, it'll be automatically converted to their shitty fiat
Yeah.
currency, and and you have no choice, and you're like supporting these big conglomerates. In most cases, you're supporting BlackRock behind closed doors. Whereas the small mom and pop shops and markets, I would love to go to the market and see instead of these cardboard price tags with dollar numbers on them, just have QR codes, and maybe not even sats, but like as long as they accept Bitcoin, like I'll be so gladly spending my Bitcoin with them. And as you said, circular economy, exchanging Bitcoin peer to peer, which is the whole essence of why Bitcoin was created by Satoshi in 2009. It was like the under headline was peer to peer electronic cash, right? It wasn't meant to
Exactly. Yeah.
be a digital instrument held in some vault, giving you some non-imaginary yield or whatnot, everything that's happening, and the whole DeFi space. Yeah, I don't want to go down there. It gets gloomy very fast, but
Yeah.
amazing.
I definitely agree. It was supposed to be peer to peer cash, and that's kind of why I've always been here.
Yeah.
And it's just really exciting for me to see places like Vancouver or El Salvador or Costa Rica, like Bitcoin Beach and Bitcoin Jungle and those things
Have you
just kind
visited
of take
them
root. And
yourself or not yet?
I have not. They're on my bucket list for this year.
Nice.
So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a whole different mindset. Like a few weeks ago, I had Eric V Stacks. His episode's actually going to be coming out in a few days' time, and he spent quite some time there. Like this year, he already went twice, and now he's already planning in November, and he's even potentially like thinking to like move there with his family. He's like, the whole atmosphere there, it's about like everybody in the West is talking about like how bad it's going to get, and he's like saying like over here it's like everybody's talking how good it's going to get, because like everybody's coming together, they're collaborating, they're helping each other. It's just like a very healthy environment to be in. So I haven't personally been there yet, but hopefully next year in 2025, I would love to do a visit to El Salvador. And once I'm already at that part of the world, it only makes sense, to check out also Costa Rica and the other places that are springing up. Do like a little Bitcoin tour with my family and show them, show my girls that daddy's not crazy. That there is things happening and there are people doing good things.
Yeah.
And it's not about just numbers go up, but there's actual movement on it. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm also super excited about merchants accepting it, people growing and helping each other instead of just speculating and talking about. It's nice that the numbers are going up, but that's not the primary aspect of it. And this is not a you know not everyone's an analyst and sitting looking at 1 minute candlesticks. There's only so many candlesticks you can look at, and the best thing about Bitcoin is the volatility, right? It can go up as high as it can go down. You can have an omega candle the opposite way. It doesn't have to just be the north way, but that doesn't really matter, because when you zoom out and look at the macro, the prices are just going up. And what I tell most people is don't focus on the price, focus on the purchasing power. And Bitcoin, every year that passes, your purchasing power increases significantly, no matter what fiat markets you work in. So I guess to round up the episode, like I do to all the guests that I have on the show, what is one piece of advice, Stupid Moose, you would share with people who are pre-coiners? As we there is no coiners.
Oh.
Everybody's going to be a coiner at some time. It's just the pre-coiners. What is your piece of advice that you'd like to share with them?
Pre-coiners, I would just say keep an open mind and play with it. It doesn't hurt anybody to throw $20 in a Bitcoin. And, I'm pretty sure that if you walk up to any Bitcoiner and you're like, hey, can I have 20 bucks worth of Bitcoin? I want to learn how this works. You're not going to be
Okay.
told no. You're going to be told yes. And I mean, they'll probably give you the 20 bucks and just like not even ask for the cash just because you're so interested in, yeah, I mean, just keeping an open mind. Pre-coiners need to keep an open mind. So often you talk to people about Bitcoin and they have their preconceived notions of it's for drugs, it's illegal,
Mm.
it's, only for criminals. No, it's not. It's freedom money. And, you know, too many people are just doing what their governments tell them to do and closed-minded, and just keep an open mind, man, and try it out.
There you go. Well, you heard it. I think there was another influential man that also closed the keynote by saying, "Have fun playing with your Bitcoin this summer in Nashville." But that is great advice. I mean, go out and get yourself the $20 worth of Bitcoin, which most people don't even realize that you can get $20 worth of Bitcoin. Like most pre-coiners that I speak to, and I tell them about Bitcoin, they go, "Oh, I don't have 65 or $50,000 for a coin," and I'm like, you realize you don't need to buy a full coin. It's subdivided to 100 million units, and then like their pupils they just widen up. They're like, oh, 100 million? Like, what are you talking about? And then it's like, wow. And then you slowly start, it's like an onion. You start like revealing all these like layers. But yeah, I think that's super good advice. Go out. If you can't buy it yourself, I totally agree with the Stupid and Moose. Bitcoiners are very generous, especially the maxis. If you want to come to a conference and ask from someone to get some sats to learn about it, you will most likely get the amount that you're seeking for. I guess the last thing would be, where can we send our listeners to follow you, a Stupid Moose? Where are you most active on online?
Yeah, probably X. I'm at a stupid moose. You can also follow at CoinCards. That's more for the company side, but either of those, you can follow me or follow the company and see what we're up to.
Perfect. And Noster, you're active on Noster as well now? Or trying to?
We do have a Nostr account. We're trying to get a little more active on that. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a struggle, just more so because I always forget.
No worries, it's habits. There'll come a point when
Yeah.
we'll switch the focus on
Yeah.
Noster, but as long as we have the account there, because there's been a lot of people in the last few months that have been leaving eggs that are kind of maxi nostriches. They're just like on Noster, so it's always good, to have also some presence there, and people can reach out. But yeah, I don't
Definitely.
blame you. Everything takes time. Stupid
Yeah.
Moose, thanks a lot for being an absolute legend to come on, and of course everything that you're doing with the coin cards, being a true, pure cypherpunk, not being influenced by VC and dirty money, really working for us all. And yeah, if you ever need any help or ever want to come back on the show to share something or have another chat about all things Bitcoin, you're always more than welcome. And I look forward to seeing you somewhere around the globe in one of the future conferences. And until then, keep up the amazing work.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.